Hello, everyone, and welcome to Discover Rising Tides, How the Outside Makes the Inside Better. And I'm Jeanne Gallagher. And welcome to Denise Stegall. Hey, Denise.
Hey, Jeanne, how you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good.
As everyone knows, Denise is the longevity specialist at Living Healthy List. And this month, this is a heavy month. This month, we're talking about understanding menopause and hormones. So much to talk about.
Yes. So, what I'd like to really focus on today, specifically, menopause, we could be talking about this. I mean, there are full podcasts and books, and we could talk about menopause forever, and hormones. But today, I want to focus a little bit more on navigating like that roller coaster, that estrogen roller coaster, because it has an impact. And in each one of our hormones has a different impact. I mean, obviously, they all work together. We're always kind of looking for, we always have this phrase that we talk about as hormone balance. Like our hormones are ever completely balanced. They're not. But we want them balanced enough that we are not dealing with menopausal symptoms. So, speaking of menopausal symptoms, right? So that's kind of where we all start. Back in the day when I was growing up, I thought menopause was something that happened to you when you were 55 years old, and then you were done. You have menopause, and then that's it. None of this perimenopause, like leading up to it, none of this postmenopause stuff that happens from that day forward. It really was never discussed in a way that was very helpful. Even when I think
don't think it
of
was ever discussed. Never, helpful or not, there was never a conversation.
Right. I mean, think back. Did you have a conversation with your mom about it?
No.
I've kind of had a couple of conversations with my mother, but they were more like, well, I didn't experience that, or no, that never happened to me, or you should go talk to your doctor. When I was really looking for, advice from my mom, thinking, what did she experience? And I can understand this to a degree because her generation, it wasn't something they talk about. But here's the other thing that's important to note. Everybody goes through menopause differently. And I think that's part of the question. How do you talk to somebody about something that they're experiencing when you're experiencing something different or not experiencing anything at all? So that transition and the perimenopause thing, this was a new phrase for me a couple of years ago. I had never heard of perimenopause. I was 37 years old and I was dealing with hot flashes and mood swings. Like, I've always been pretty stable mood wise. When my husband said to me, something's going on with you, I knew very well that I needed to do something about it because I hadn't been feeling well, but I couldn't really put my finger on it. What was really bothering me? So I was 37, come to learn that a lot of women, or some women, can start perimenopause. And for the guys who are listening in, I apologize, but this is actually going to be really good for you to understand your spouses, your moms, your daughters come down the road, right? So perimenopause for some women starts very early in their 30s.
And I had never known that. Until you mentioned it.
I have a cousin who started having menopausal symptoms at 32.
Wow.
I was 37. And so when you think, at 32, that's still prime, baby time, right? Many of us are, many people nowadays are waiting a little longer to have kids. And so this is something that's really important for us to be talking about, because if at 32 or 33, you're just thinking, we're going to start to have a family, this may be a challenge. Was for me. So what's really happening here with the estrogen and progesterone, and we'll talk about progesterone in another episode, but this is where those mood swings start. Your metabolism starts to slow down. You get those hot flashes. Sorry, my words are not working with me today. You get hot flashes. And for me, the hot flashes, the night sweats were the worst. But then after that, I would say the mood swings. And they're not something you can just control. And I think that's a challenge that so many women, especially younger women, think, oh, they're having mood problems. Is it depression? Is it anxiety? Could be, could very well be perimenopause.
Mhm.
So one of the challenges I think we have, one, we don't talk about it, or our parents didn't, our mothers didn't talk about it, or our grandparents didn't talk about it, but neither do our doctors. I think for me, the biggest challenge was when I went to the first doctor at 37 and I was explaining what was going on. He said to me, oh, at your age, it's just a phase. You'll be fine. That was really not a good answer for somebody who was struggling.
Mhm.
But looking back, in his defense, he didn't know what else to tell me. He didn't
Mhm.
have anything for me. So when it comes to education, we have to go out and find this education for ourselves. Now, for me, because I live at the Mayo Clinic world, I was going seeking traditional medicine. Now, I know for you, you followed a naturopathic physician for many years.
Mhm.
So you and I have discussed this before. We had very different experiences,
Sure.
which is what I alluded to before. Some women, piece of cake. My sister, I was just talking to my sister a few minutes ago, and she just turned 50. And she's like, so should I be taking something? I asked her, I said, do you have any symptoms? So the only thing that she's noticing is the menopause, and that is a real thing. When your hormones are fluctuating so much, that's usually the first place women notice it. Whether it's hot flashes or whatever, most of us notice that menopause first, right?
I've never heard of that term before. Menobelly.
Menopause. It's a real thing. You can Google it. But it's true. It's where all of a sudden we start to, hold fat in that in our abdomen, our lower abdomen, where we may not have ever held weight before. And it has nothing to do with how much you're exercising and how much you're eating. I'm really big on counting my calories. I don't recommend that to everyone, but I do this for me as a
Mhm.
longevity specialist. It's something that I think is important for me to understand. So I do that. So when I started to notice this, I thought, I haven't changed my diet. I haven't exercised more or less. So what's going on? And I was really starting to notice at that point, aside from the hot flashes, that's when I physically started to notice something very different.
Mhm.
That was going on. So what else? So what does estrogen do for us? Obviously, if you're in that phase of life where you are looking to have a child, you need to have that estrogen. You need to have high estrogen in order to take a pregnancy to term. Most of us here listening are beyond that, so we may have children or children at that phase, right? So as that drops, though, some of the things that occur that most of us kind of we don't necessarily recognize at first, because it's not necessarily, we don't feel bad or feel different, but we start to notice sex is kind of painful, kind of dry down there. These are symptoms that come with that lack of estrogen. And most people don't even think about it. It's just, we're getting older. That's always been the explanation. Well, you're 50 now, or 50 plus. And so that's always been the answer that the doctors have. Well, and yeah, there's over the counter stuff that they tell you to try, but it's not actually helping. It may help some of the symptom, but it's not actually helping the problem. It's just kind of masking it, which is very often what we do. If we have a pain, we take a medication to make the pain go away, as opposed to finding out, is the pain actually a problem? Like with my wrist, it was bothering me. Well, yeah, I realized that I broke a bone in my hand, but I had been taking Tylenol for 2 days because it was just swollen.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So, and like I said, gynecologists, they're called OBGYNs, right? They're obstetricians, obstetricians and gynecologists. They're obstetricians first. So they're great when, when you want to have a baby, when, when you're in that age. When you're in your 40s, they're kind of okay. When you get to this phase, they don't know what to talk to you about. They don't understand. If it's a woman, you may have a little bit of an interesting conversation, but they only have one thing to recommend to you, and it's HRT, hormone replacement therapy, which is synthetic. And, through the years, we've known that there are problems with that. In the past, we know that it could increases some cancer risk. So is that an option? Is that a conversation you have with your doctor? Sometimes. But again, is it actually fixing the problem or helping you with the problem? Because again, with the drop of estrogen, we want to find a way to raise that naturally. Not to the point where we were when we were in our 20s, but just to the point where we're not feeling symptoms. So that's one of the things, menopausal symptoms, the major problems that we feel when we're in menopause. Estrogen also protects against osteoporosis, and many people don't know that. I didn't know that. I have an aunt who lives in England. Well, my aunts live in England. She's a tiny lady. She's always been really thin and frail. She's a smoker, so that's part of it. But it was, a pretty young age, she was diagnosed with osteopenia, which is the step before osteoporosis. Interesting thought. She went into early menopause. So that estrogen helps to maintain bone density. Basically, it helps with bone renewal. So, as a kid, if you're a kid, you fall and you break your bone, it heals pretty well. As you get older, if you fall and break a bone, not so much. It takes a lot more time. And, with that, with osteoporosis, they want you to take, make sure you're taking your calcium and your magnesium and maybe a supplement and, additional supplement. But if our estrogen was at a balancing level, we could potentially avoid that risk. Cardiovascular health. Cardiovascular disease is on the rise. It's been on the rise along with obesity for as long as I can remember. Truly, as long as I have been in the health and wellness field, which is, 15 years. Menopause. Estrogen plays a protective role in your health because it makes your it makes your arteries more flexible, and it helps with, let me think this through right exactly. And favorable cholesterol levels. So your arteries are flexible. Everything can kind of go through your arteries. So you're not getting that plaque that causes heart failure, congestive heart failure, all of those things. So with that decline, again, you don't have that protection. And it's so crucial for us to take steps. Again, we're talking menopause. Now I'm talking heart disease. It's all connected.
It's all connected, right?
I think so often we think, we have this one problem, we have this one thing. No, we have this one body, and what's going on in this one body is all connected. And if one thing is out of balance, especially when it comes to our hormones, down the line, things are out of balance down the road as well.
And one of the challenges too, and we've talked about this many times, is because there's different pieces to this body puzzle, finding a medical person or the right, maybe medical people to have these conversations with, because it might be more than just one person. It's a challenge.
It is a challenge. In the medical world, they really don't get a lot of education. Your primary care doctor knows nothing about this. If you go to your primary care doctor with challenges, they're going to send you to somebody else. And I've actually spoken to a menopause and aging specialist back quite a few years ago now, who honestly wasn't very helpful either, because she looked at me and said, at my age, and I think at the time I was maybe 45, 47, she said to me, "You're not menopausal, so stop taking all that herbal crap that you're taking and just go, just stay on birth control." This is the menopause and aging lady. I was, like I said, 45, 47. And that's all she had to offer me.
Yeah.
And that was really a hard, hard pill to swallow, because
Right.
I was going to a specialist for help. And she just was not ready to help me.
Mhm.
That she didn't think I was in a place where I needed help. Now, interestingly, being in the health and wellness world, I do know of other doctors who practice naturopathic medicine, all sorts of different types of alternative medicine. And I'd heard of something called the Dutch test. And I'll talk about this a little bit more in another segment. But with that test, they tested hormones that none of the doctors, my gynecologist or this menopause and aging specialist, they never recommended. So how would you know if I was perimenopausal, menopausal, postmenopausal, if you didn't test? So that's another piece I think that's really important for us to understand is
I had
our
never heard
doctors
of the
aren't.
Dutch test either until my daughter took one.
Mhm.
And luckily she was in contact with the right people that had that open information. So yeah.
It's interesting. I may actually, and I know I wanted to talk about this a little later, but noticed it. Nope, it's not going right at my fingertips. I'll get it for next time. I have my results, and it's pages of result.
Mhm.
So when it comes to, kind of to summarize, when it comes to menopause, when it comes to estrogen levels, your medical doctor is going to say they're not going to have a test for you. If you're lucky, they may refer you to a specialist. And I hope that specialist helps. But this is something that I believe, as we age, we need to take our health in our own hands and say to the doctor, we've done our research. This is what I think I need. And if your medical doctor's not the person to find somebody who can help you, and that's where these conversations come in. I'm always available to help somebody, to point somebody in a direction. I know a lot of people in the area, in the field, in that area.
What
So
are
if anybody,
what are the few things for people to look for? So the middle belly. So
menobelly,
mood swings.
mood swings, and just especially for women who never had mood swings before, you'll notice them. So mood swings, menobelly, the night sweats
Mhm.
and hot flashes. Those are really the first things that people will notice. And I think for most people, the menobelly is like, it is not the first one. It may be one of the later ones that
Well,
people
those are
notice.
good for people to say, oh, wait, I think I've had this. And then now, at least go talk to somebody so you can get some more information on your own body.
Right. Especially when it comes to those mood swings. If you've never suffered from anxiety or depression, anything like that before, and this is new, more than likely it's because of the menopause or perimenopause. It's one of those symptoms due to the lack of estrogen.
Super helpful. And this is a complicated subject and to fit into a short amount of time. So if anybody has any questions and just wants to bounce some ideas or bounce some questions off, feel free to reach out to Denise. She's a wealth of information, and thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. This is Jeanne Gallagher, Discover Rising Tides, and I want to just take a moment to talk about my friend, Denise Stegall. I am honored to call her as a friend, and I'm so grateful that she gives us her insight during our shows, each show, and talks about healthy living, eating real food. You hear Denise say, eat real food a lot. Well, she means it, and she knows what she's talking about. She is an amazing healthy living coach, curator at Living Healthy List. And if you ever have any questions about what is real food, why does it matter? How does that apply to me? How do I change? What do I need to do? How do I even create a healthy living shopping list? Make sure that you call her. She is your healthy living coach, and you can find her at healthylivinglist.com. First, I'm excited to introduce Alison Halen. Hi, Alison. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Very good, very good. So give us a quick little rundown on your bio, but then we'll talk about a lot of it.
Yeah, so my company is AV Writing Services. I am a content marketer, SEO strategist. speaker and author. And as you and I were talking in our call before this, that means a lot of screen time. So yes, I enjoy getting outside and giving my eyes a little rest every now and then.
Yes, and you have company when you do that too, don't you?
I do have company. Yes, I have a Siberian Husky who makes sure that I go for very long walks as long as it's weather appropriate for her, which means less than like 80 degrees, 70 if it's, humid. So now that we're into the 80s, we're recording this in July. So now she's not so psyched about the longer walks, but we do still go for a walk every day. And in the winter, she wants to go for really, really long walks. So yeah, I get my steps in every day.
That's fantastic. And my dog is weather dependent too, but she's less flexible than yours because she doesn't have a heat regulator. So she doesn't do really hot and she has to be bundled for really cold. She's super pathetic. And I'm in California and right now it's ridiculous. Ugh.
Yeah.
And so she's actually out of town with my husband in a much better climate for her to be outside, but we'll get to all that. So tell us about so you have many different things between a writer, an author, speaker. So where would you like to start? And how did all of these find you?
One at a time. I have always loved writing, always wanted to be a writer when I was growing up, was told that writers don't make any money and I should choose a more practical career. So I ended up majoring in English and psychology, which little did I know is actually the perfect degree for content marketing. I had no idea what content marketing was. I thought I was going to go work in publishing because I figured if I can't make a living writing books, maybe I could make a living making books. Well, I graduated in 2009, right after the job market crashed. So there were no jobs to be had in publishing or really anywhere else. So I was a receptionist, I was in customer service. They were jobs, they were not careers. Found myself between jobs at one point, and my roommate at the time, her dad, who was an attorney, was awesome and offered to give me stuff to do around his office until I got back on my feet. And one of the things he needed was someone to write blog posts for his law firm. And he knew I had a strong writing background. So he offered me the gig. I was more than happy to get paid to write because that was the dream. So I jumped at that chance. And it just kept growing from there. I started writing for an associate of his and then for some friends of mine. Did eventually get another day job, but kept writing on the side, and it just kept growing to the point where I could not do both anymore. So quit the day job almost 8 years ago now and have been doing this ever since.
That's amazing. So, you have those thoughts that, oh, I could write that, or, oh, that would be great to be able to be, what's the lady that wrote the vampire book that she was like a housewife and she wrote the book and now she's famous.
Which vampire book? The Twilight series?
Yes, that one.
I'm trying to remember the author's name.
I can't remember either. So, but so you always have these, well, I could write that. I am not a writer. There is no question. I struggle with blog posts, right? And so it always amazes me that somebody that can take thoughts in your brain and turn them into words on a paper. And I'm an avid reader. I read all the time. I could curl up on the couch and read for days. And so I have to actually watch how much I read so that I do other things. And I've always been amazed at how people can take thoughts coherently in detail and create words that create pictures for other people. And so how is it different, or what is it like to write for other people? So you're not necessarily writing your content, you're taking somebody else's idea and their thoughts and what's the background that you have to go through to write content for others?
It depends on the client. Mostly it involves a lot of online research. I think in the early days when I started writing for some of the first attorneys I wrote for, they would send me like a newspaper article and they would say, turn this into a blog post. And basically I would not copy it, but I would rewrite it in such a way so that it was more of a blog post and less of a newspaper article, with that call to action at the end of, if you need someone who does this, we do this.
So what's the difference between a newspaper article and a blog post? What do you look for?
You're going to have more quotes in a newspaper article because they get to actually talk to the sources. With a blog post, I'm not usually talking to the sources, although you absolutely can do that, especially if you want your your blog post to be like a case study or success story for one of your clients, which is absolutely a valid option. But you're not going to be like talking to all these different sources and getting quotes together. Newspaper articles also usually are required to show both sides, whereas with a blog post, we're not required to. We can be as biased as we want to. And we do want to put our company in a certain light, and our services in a certain light. So I'd say that's the main difference.
Interesting. And so it's really possible to write content for subjects that you might not yourself be familiar with, as long as you're researching and getting the information for that particular article.
Right. And I've done some blog posts where I just do the research online. I just Google it and find good resources. Sometimes clients give me the resources. Sometimes I interview the clients. I've also had clients who know they want a blog post on something, but like you said, they're not writers. That's not their strong suit, but they can talk about it all day. So they'll send me an audio file where they talk about it, and I just clean it up and turn it into a nice blog post for them.
Oh, that's a great idea. That's awesome. And so you mentioned attorneys, and that's how it started. Or do you mostly do attorney law work, or do you expand?
Yeah, I do write for others, although I do focus on attorneys and financial planners is kind of the other niche I've developed. I've also been writing for more coaches and realtors lately. So really all of those professional service industries, those people who need to educate their clients and position themselves as an authority in their industry, that's really my sweet spot for the people that I write for.
That's an interesting transition from attorneys and financial planners to realtors and coaches. How did that evolve?
Just networking. It is one of those things where when you say you're a writer, everyone goes, "Oh, I need a writer," or "I need help with blogging," because yes, everyone should be blogging.
Really?
Yes, everyone needs a blog. I'm sorry. I hate to be the bearer of bad news. But yeah, I would network and get myself out there. And I realized that coaches and realtors tended to gravitate towards me because they understood the importance of what I provide. So a lot of business coaches are telling their clients that they need to be blogging. So they're like, well, if I'm telling my clients I should probably be doing it too.
So why do people need to blog? What does it do for them?
Yeah, well, it does a number of things. So first of all, it helps you show up in those Google searches. Google prefers new content. You can't just put up a bunch of landing pages and let it sit there forever and assume that it's going to drive traffic for you. It can, to a point, especially if you have like a Google My Business page, but Google really prefers that new content. So especially when people are in the early stages, figuring out, what is this? Do I need this? Why do I need this? Those kinds of searches, that's where the blog posts come in and can help you get in front of those people when they're just starting to learn about your industry and your services. And when you get in front of them early, you can kind of reel them in, lead them through the buyer journey, and turn them into clients. But you need that content, that new content on your website in order to get Google's attention, because anytime there's newer content, Google is going to prioritize that over your older content. So you really do need to keep blogging. It lets Google know that there's still someone behind the business. It lets real life people know that there's still someone behind the business. If they get to your website and they see you haven't posted anything since April, they're going to wonder, like, is there anyone still doing this website, or is it just kind of sitting here? The other thing it positions you as a thought leader in your industry, and because it explains to people why they should be working with you over someone else. And it educates your clients. I had a client one time who reached out to me because she'd been reading my blog post for a while and she needed my services. And when it got down to, okay, what do you need? I didn't have to try to upsell her because she had been reading my blog post. She knew the value of longer content. She knew all the stats because they were in my blog post. So we got to go straight to, okay, how much is this going to cost? Where's the contract? Let's get this moving. So it was so much easier.
Interesting. And so how often should people blog or post new information?
At least once a week. The people who are seeing results from their blogs are posting at least once a week. The more often you post, the more results you tend to see. So the people who are posting daily or even multiple times a day get the best results. But keep in mind, those are people who either have a team of people writing for them or they rely on a lot of guest blog posts. So if you're a solopreneur doing this yourself, or if you're hiring one or two people like myself, we do not that is not a reasonable expectation. But that is, I would say at least once a week.
And how long does a blog need to be? Or does that matter?
It depends on the keyword. So I mean, Google does prioritize content that's at least 500 words. So that is always the minimum that I start with, is 500 words. Some SEO professionals have gone longer, saying like 2,000, even 3,000 words per blog post, just because Google does love that longer, juicier content, the content that gets really in depth into a particular topic. The average length of a post that ranks on the first page of Google is like 1,700 words. So again, that's the average. There's shorter, there's longer content that shows up on the first page of Google. I would say it depends on the keyword. So if you've got your target keyword, you know the topic you're covering, you're looking at some other blog posts that cover that and they're ranking highly and they only have like 700, 800 words, then I'd say that's fine for your blog post. It doesn't need to be much longer than that. It should be, if you can. I think I know I always prioritize quality over quantity. So don't try to hit a number or a word count just because, but really try to make sure that you are covering everything there is to cover on that particular topic, so that your blog post is the ultimate guide to that particular topic. So if anyone wants to know anything about it, they can find it on your website. If they can find other information about it elsewhere, they have that opportunity to go elsewhere. But if you can cover everything there is to cover, you're going to increase your chances of getting Google's attention and showing up on that first page.
Interesting. So keywords. So do you choose a keyword? Does the keyword drive the content, or does the content drive the keyword?
The keyword drives the content. That's the first thing that I always look at, is what is our target keyword. You should always have a target keyword, which is like your main keyword that you're really targeting for that piece of content, and then related keywords to go with it. Your target keyword should be throughout your content, but the related keywords should also be throughout the content. Those are keywords that are, not identical to the target keyword, but they're related to it. You're going to see those anytime you do keyword research. You're going to find it'll give you a chunk of related keywords for any keyword that you put in. So you should make sure those are sprinkled throughout your content. So yeah, absolutely. Figure out what those keywords are. Figure out what the search intent of that keyword is, because there are different things people are looking for when they search different things. So for a blog post, you're going to focus on like the how-tos and the whys and the what is, so that you're educating your audience. A lot of people will search, if they're looking to buy something, they're going to put that into the search term that they're using. It'll be like best price on such and such, or what's the best XYZ, or where can I buy this product, right? Or get this service, who provides this service, right? So that's another thing, because sometimes it's really obvious and sometimes it's not so obvious. So always research your keyword, like know the keyword you want to target, but then also see what other content is already out there with that keyword, because that will give you an idea of the search intent.
Oh, interesting. Okay. And so can you give an example of a keyword and a related keyword?
Yeah. So, I mean, content marketing is one, but there are a million different ways that, like, people say content marketing strategy would probably be a good target keyword, just because that tends to have less competition, whereas everyone's talking about content marketing these days. So that's a related keyword that I might throw in, sprinkled in with the content, just because content marketing strategy is kind of a mouthful, but you can get those other keywords in there. SEO is another one that is related to all of that, blogging. Yeah, so anytime you do research in a keyword tool, it'll give you a whole bunch of related keywords along with the stats on that particular keyword that you're searching.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Very complicated, but people like you can make it much easier to digest as well, and making sure that everything is covered, not just the great idea that needs to be written about. Any great idea can be written about, but it might not be found unless it's done specifically. And so when you're writing content for people, you're not able to use your name or your byline on that. Is that right?
Right.
And Are you connected to those blogs at all so people can see your content, or you're doing it in the client's name, so you're behind the scenes? It's nothing that, is there anything that's embedded that follows it back to you?
No, nothing.
Mhm.
Sometimes I do provide a backlink on my portfolio page,
Mhm.
just because people want to see, you know, what I've been doing and
Mhm.
want to see proof of my writing. So I do have a portfolio, and sometimes I will link to a client's blog post. That's about it. But my name is not anywhere on there. My company is not anywhere on there. The whole idea is to position the client as a thought leader and an expert in their industry. So I want their name all over everything. I'm a ghostwriter, basically. You're not supposed to see me.
Behind the scenes, totally.
Right.
And it really must help break up the, monotony is the wrong word, but if you're doing something for, maybe it is a good word, right? If you're doing something for one industry, your articles are all very similar, but it brings a little variety when you're able to find other niches that work for you. Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's one of my favorite parts of my job, is that because I get to write for different companies and different industries, I get to learn all kinds of different things that I never would have known. Like, I started writing for that attorney who happened to do employment law, and now I know way more about employment law than I ever thought I would.
And did you ever think about when you transitioned to full-time, or were you just working part-time as a blogger, that you would be here now, or was that really part of your plan?
No, gosh, I think podcasts were still fairly new. I don't think I was even listening to podcasts at that point in time. I was a fairly late adopter, considering I'm a millennial. You'd think I'd be one of the first people to listen to podcasts. But no, and in addition to my two majors, I did also minor in theater. So although public speaking was not part of my plan, if you had told me that I would be going this way, I absolutely would have believed you. I would not have believed that I'd be going the SEO route, just because it is so analytical and so many I'm not normally a numbers person. I'm a word person. And I felt at first, when I first learned about SEO, that it would be very restricting, like it was telling me what to write about. But I actually feel like it can be used for inspiration now that I have gotten more into SEO, and I've realized that it's not as intimidating as I thought it would be. And it's actually really interesting to see what people are writing about. So it's actually a great source of inspiration. So I think that's the trajectory that my career has taken that has surprised me the most.
That's interesting. Yeah. And to be able to, well, I think too, when you take a deeper dive into how a subject works, or how an industry works, and you're able to understand the behind the scenes pieces, it brings more validity to what you're currently doing as well.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so speaking, theatrical, right? So how does the speaking piece work into, and what do you do there?
A lot of what I do with my blogging, because I do have a number of presentations I've given that I also have a blog post on that same topic. But it just allows me to get in front of people in a different way. And I think it allows me to expand my audience, just because people might see me at a networking event or at a presentation who might not otherwise read my blog post. Just like you and I are big readers, so we'll read all day long. But a lot of people look at a chunk of text and their eyes glaze over, and they won't read the whole thing, right? But they might watch a video, or they might attend a presentation that I give. And it's the same basic idea, where I explain why blogging is so important, give tips on how they can use it in their day-to-day lives to grow their business.
That's fantastic. And so how do people find you? Not like giving your website address yet. We'll do that in the end. But how do you find clients, and how do blogging clients, and how do they find you? Is it mostly word of mouth, or is it really networking?
Yeah, networking and word of mouth are probably the two biggest ones. Google and my website also have been good for me. I know at least one person did end up hiring me because he found my Google My Business page. Social media has been another one. I've been really active on LinkedIn lately. I got at least one client from LinkedIn, just because we ended up, interacting with each other on LinkedIn, and then he hired me. So yeah, I'm kind of all over the place.
How did you find that COVID affected your business?
It really didn't. I'd say the one way that it did affect I was always working from home. So in that sense, it was like that part of my life was not upended. And like I said, I got to go walking outside with my dog every day. So I was not like trapped in my home 24/7. The one big difference I think was that all the people who thought they did not need a website were suddenly like, oh gosh, I need a website. So I did get more business, especially in the early days of COVID, as people were like scrambling to get a website together, and then they needed content for the website. So then they would reach out to me. So I think that was the biggest thing, is that all of a sudden, because we were all at home and we were all online, suddenly people who did not prioritize being online suddenly had to prioritize it. And that's where I came in.
Yeah, it makes a difference, I think, too, for me as well. I was already working from home. Even as a financial advisor, which was not normal to work from home, I've been doing it for years. And so that physical transition in COVID wasn't so much of a drag. It was, well, that's what I've been doing. So I didn't have to slog through that mental process, right? But what makes a difference is everybody else being comfortable being online. That helps. And did that change your speaking piece, or when did you start speaking as well?
I had started before the pandemic, just at some of the networking events. And it wasn't until recently that I started reaching out to more podcasts to do more things like this. So obviously when I did speak, I think it was before the pandemic when I started speaking and was like, this is something that's good for my business. I should do more of this. That was like right before the pandemic that I started doing that. So once the pandemic hit, it was like, well, get used to presenting on Zoom. And now it's like, what should I wear on Zoom? How can I be camera ready? All that good stuff. So yeah, it's a little different for sure. The energy is definitely different. But on the flip side, it's a great way to get in front of people that I might never have gotten in front of, because I can serve people anywhere, all over the world. So it is really beneficial to be able to present to and network with people who are international.
Exactly. Yeah, that does change things quite a bit for you. And where are typically your clients located right now? Or demographically, are they similar, or location wise, are they similar?
Yeah, most of them are here in Chicago, just because this is where I do most of my networking. So most of them are here. I have had clients in other parts. I've had some on the East Coast. I think I had one or two in Florida for a while. I have one who's like way down in Southern Illinois. So like we're in the same state, but I've never met her because it is quite a drive.
Yeah. So, but it does, and that's one of the great things about COVID, is that it has shown us what a small world it is, and kind of, well, like you and me, right? I'm in California, you're in Chicago, and I met you through another person who I met through a networking event. And we would never have come in touch with each other in pre-COVID situations, most likely.
Right. So yeah.
It makes a huge difference. And so author, you obviously are a blog author. Do you do any other types of writing, or is it primarily blog posts?
It's primarily blog posts. That is my bread and butter. I do also do website content, some email marketing, and I've written my own book, Content Marketing Made Easy. That's a little on the long side. I've never written anything that long for a client. I have written shorter ebooks for some clients, the kinds of books that they put up on their website, like a lead magnet that people can download and use. So I've written those. Yeah, basically anytime you need content written, I've written press releases. I do not do social media. That is the one that's where I draw the line. Just because I did it for a while, it was fine. It was just, I was okay at it, but I know there are people at it who are better at it than I am.
What's the
enjoy
difference?
It more than I do.
What's the difference between the social media and a blog post?
Social media is usually a lot shorter, especially when you're talking about like Twitter. Although with Facebook and LinkedIn, some of the longer posts have been getting more traction. It's a whole different ballgame as far as, the algorithm. Keywords may or may not work the same way on there. I mean, it's all getting indexed and categorized by Google. So you can still find those posts through a Google search. it's just not what I want to be doing. The shorter content and the more short-lived content is just not my thing.
Tell me about your book.
Content Marketing Made Easy is all about, it's about making content marketing easy. Like I said, when I discovered SEO, I would have been way too intimidated to try it, but it was just one of those things where the more I did blogging, the more I found that blogging and SEO really go hand in hand. You can't have one without the other these days. So I kind of had to learn SEO on the fly. And like I said, it's ended up being one of my favorite parts of my job. It's actually really fascinating and not nearly as intimidating as I thought it would be. So the whole idea behind Content Marketing Made Easy is to make it easy and accessible for the average person, and to explain that like SEO doesn't have to be scary, blogging doesn't have to be scary. You just have to understand how it works. So here's how it works.
And here's the piece of your psychology major that comes into play, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, so learning what's going to trigger people, or what you might want to. I think what's fascinating about it is what might trigger people today or last week might not be relevant in 6 months, right? And it can change. And can you drive that change, or be more proactive than reactive? And how do you think about, do you ever think about things of that sort? And
oh, for sure. Yeah, because Google is constantly changing their algorithm, and I do mean constantly. Every 6 months or so, they'll have what they call a core update, which is a big change to their algorithm. And that's when, if you're tracking your website traffic, you might go, what the heck just happened? Because people tend to see spikes and dips and spikes, and it gets a little crazy. But even, when they're not doing that, Google is constantly making tiny adjustments to their algorithm. So they're constantly adjusting. So yes, there's a lot of memes online about, people reacting after Google makes an update, and people scrambling and wondering why their traffic fell, or their search ranking position fell, or what to do about it. So we never really know what Google is doing, because they tend to announce these core updates like, by the way, we're doing a core update now. Or in like a few hours.
Actually, 10 minutes ago, this actually happened.
And that actually happened with the last one. I want to say a week or two before they announced it, people started noticing weird things. So it was like, did they roll it out early, or were they beta testing in the real world before they officially rolled it out?
Oh, by the way.
So yeah. Oh, by the way, we're doing this thing. So that can get a little screwy and put a lot of people in reactive mode. The way I think of it is just like Google, just at the end of the day, it's just trying to get good content in front of its users. It just wants to help people answer the questions they're asking, and drive them towards, high quality content in a website that's trustworthy, that is a reliable resource. And yes, there are tricks and strategies you can use to tell Google, that to convince Google that you're reliable and you're really an authority in your industry. But at the end of the day, if you're answering your target audience's questions in a comprehensive way, and creating high quality content on a regular basis, you should be good to go.
So yes, your day is involved with a lot of screen time, right? And between research and writing and creating. So who tells you, who says something first, you or the dog that says, I've had enough and I gotta go?
It's usually me. We do have fairly set walk times. I'm afraid to even say that word out loud. She's actually very patient, especially for a husky. She's had days where she waits a really long time between walks, and she's totally chill. She'll just nap until she starts to see me getting my clothes on. And that's when she's like, okay, we're going.
Yeah, it's funny because my dog does the same thing. She watches to see not just what I'm doing, but what I happen to be wearing, or what clothes I'm pulling out to know, is this going to be a good day for a dog, or is this going to be is this a work day? So it's funny how observant animals are and how intuitive they are, and they know what you're thinking. They know what to expect. And so why is it important? What does getting out and getting away from the screen do for you? And why is that so integral in what you do?
It just helps me breathe. Sometimes when you're so wrapped up in your to-do list and I have to do this and this and this, and just stepping outside and getting away from it all, helps my blood pressure and my stress levels. But it also helps me. That's usually when I remember, oh, that's right, I have to do such and such, or oh, that's right, I have to reach out to that person. All those things that I would never think of when I'm in it. Those are the things that I tend to remember when I'm out with my dog. So I always have my phone with me so I can take notes or send a quick email or a text if I need to, while I'm on our walk. But yeah, it's just good to get outside. I mean, you and I talked in our previous call about the fact that dogs understand that outside is always better. So it's just nice just to be with her and see how happy she is, and just focus on that for an hour.
Yeah, and it's amazing. So since my dog isn't home right now and she's my hiking partner, the first day that I had to go out without her, I almost didn't go because she wasn't there, or I was like, the first mile was, oh my gosh, I just couldn't get into it. I had to really work at it because she wasn't there to motivate me. And I didn't realize how much I depended upon her for either my motivation or making sure I was taking care of myself. And that was an interesting realization when Abby wasn't around to make sure that I did something. So sometimes it's hard. And I think too, it's so easy to not go out, right? It's so easy to just slog through what you're doing. And for me anyways, I can't speak for you, but for me, it's easy just to go and do the next thing versus taking a break and coming back fresh. Even if it's a 20-minute or a half an hour break, it makes such a difference, doesn't it?
It really does. Yeah. And it is so easy to say, oh, just one more thing. Oh, this will only take a few minutes. And then an hour and a half later, you're like, wait, where did that time go?
Exactly. And then all of a sudden I can't function. And I wonder, well, what happened? Oh, yeah. Take care of yourself first.
Yeah. Your brain needs a reset.
Yeah. So where can people find you? What clients are you looking for? How can I help you find them?
Yeah. So more attorneys and financial planners are always good. I always love connecting with web designers and marketing consultants because the people who do the web design don't usually write the content, and I don't do web design. So those are always good people for me to know. And marketing consultants are always telling their clients they need to be blogging, and their clients usually don't blog. A few of them do, but most of them don't, or they write one or two and then it falls by the wayside. So
would you stop talking about me?
You are not the only one.
Oh, good Lord. Fred's in the background going, I told you were supposed to blog. So how do people find you?
So my website is AV, as in my initials, Alison for Halen. It is avwritingservices.com.
Great. So Alison, thank you. Thank you so much for spending some time with me today and talking about what you do and how you do it, because I hope that that's been helpful for. Thank you so much for listening today. Today's show is sponsored by Seaside Solutions, my financial services company. As a business owner, it's easy to be pulled in many different directions, and often taking care of yourself plummets to the bottom of the list. For me, I find myself outside to reground. My time outdoors helps me manage my day more effectively and be more present for my clients. Through this, Discovr Rising Tides was born. At Seaside Solutions, we truly believe that education is the foundation of financial wellness. Our primary focus is to provide guidance that is designed to help you achieve your long-term financial goals and visions. Working with a plan allows space for doing more things that you love, like being outside to make the inside better. If I can help you create or realign your plan, or if you would like to be added to my weekly newsletter, please let me know. This week's topic was 5 ways to set more achievable goals. Your referral means the big, beautiful world to me. And if I can help, please let me know. And thank you so much for listening, and see you next time.